Hello everybody, welcome to the Praetorian, and this is Roger Hansen, and today I am going to do a reading again from my Facebook notes, which I'm trying to transfer from my notes into video, and today is going to be one of my favorite ones because I ended up getting reading a post that one of my friends, Tessa, freaking posted, saying that corporations are not people, and that kind of made me chuckle because I've gone through this already. I'd say at least all the way back to 2014, which is 4 years ago. I even took the time to make a note on it. It was back during the time when I had this profile that I've got right here under the name Ian Flux, because that was one of my favorite gamer names when I was doing the Facebook apps. But this is one of the things that got me started on doing research and stuff on politics and things like that. And I've always liked history, but this was one of the things that got me going down that path. So, with nothing else to say, I would like to go ahead and start my reading and go from there. Alright, so, personhood. Personhood is the status of being a person. Defining personhood is a controversial topic in philosophy and law, and is closely tied to legal and political concepts of citizenship, equality, and liberty. According to law, only a natural person or legal personality has rights, protections, privileges, responsibilities, and legal liabilities. Personhood continues to be a topic of international debate and has been questioned during the abolition of slavery and fight for women's rights. In debates after abortion, fetal rights, and reproduction rights, in animal rights activism, as well as in debates about corporate personhood. Processes through which personhood is recognized vary cross-culturally, demonstrating that notions of personhood are not universal. Anthropologist Beth Conklin has shown how personhood is tied to social relations among the Ori people of Rondônia, Brazil. Bruce Knopf studied of the Gabuzi people of Papua New Guinea depict a context in which individuals became persons incrementally along through social relations. Likewise, Jane C. Goodall has also examined the construction of personhood in Papua New Guinea. In philosophy, the word person may refer to various concepts according to the naturalist epistemology tradition, from Descartes through Locke and Hume. The term may designate any human or non-human agent which, 1. Possesses continuous consciousness over time, and 2. Who is therefore capable of framing representations about the world, formulating plans, and acting on them. Harry G. Frankfurt writes that what philosophers have lately come to accept as analysis of the concept of a person is not actually analysis of that concept at all. He suggests that the concept of a person is intimately connected to free will and describes the structure of human volition according to first and second order desires. besides wanting and choosing and being moved to do this or that, humans, many also want to have or not to have certain desires and motives. They are capable of wanting to be different in their preferences and purposes from the desires or desires of the first order, which are simple desires to do or not to do one thing or another. Okay. No animal other than man, however, appears to have the capability for reflective self-evaluation that is manifested in the formation of second-order desires. A person is recognized by law as such, not because they are human, but because rights and duties are ascribed to them. The person is the legal subject or substance of which the rights and duties are attributed. An individual human being considered to be having such attributes is what lawyers call a natural person. According to Black's Law Dictionary, a person is, in general usage, a human being, i.e., natural person, though by statute term may include a firm, labor organizations, partnerships, associations, corporations, legal representations, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. Historically, not even all humans have enjoyed full legal protection as persons. Women, children, non-landowners, minorities, slaves, and to this day, people with mental handicaps, which isn't on that list, and etc. But from the late 18th through the late 20th century, being a member of the human species gradually became secular grounds for the basic rights of liberty, freedom from persecution, and humanitarian care. For example, the United States Declaration of Independence stated, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator and with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness," and thereby endorsed the idea that the rights are inherited from the moment of our lives, from the moment our lives began. In March 2007, Georgia became the first state in the nation to introduce a legislative resolution to amend the state constitution to define and recognize the personhood of the preborn. The Georgia Catholic Conference of National Right to Life opposed the effort, and it failed to attract a supermajority in both chambers in order to be placed on the ballot. Georgia legislators have filled a personhood resolution every session since 2007. In May 2008, Georgia Right to Life hosted the first national personhood symposium targeted pro-life activists. This symposium was instrumental in spawning the group Personhood USA and in various state personhood efforts that followed. Voters in 46 Georgia counties approved personhood during the 2010 primary election, with 75% in favor of a non-binding resolution declaring the equal rights of all humans being from conception. During the 2012 Republican primary, a similar question was placed on the ballot statewide and passed with a supermajority, 66% of the vote, in 158 of 159 counties. The summer of 2008, a citizen-initiated amendment was proposed for the Colorado Constitution. 3 attempts to enact the from fertilization definition of personhood into U.S. Senate Constitution via referenda has failed, following 2 attempts to enact similar changes in Colorado in 2008 and 2010. A 2011 initiative to amend the state constitution by referendum in the state of Mississippi also failed to gain approval, with around 58% of voters disapproving. In an interview after the referendum, Mason ascribed the failure of the initiative to a political campaign run by Planned Parenthood. Other similar initiatives are being planned for 2012 by supporters in California, Florida, Montana, Nevada, and Ohio. Several state Supreme Courts have rejected challenges to personhood measures brought by opponents in states including Colorado, Ohio, Nevada, and Mississippi. In Mississippi, majority opinion Justice Randy G. Pierce wrote, essentially plaintiffs asked this court to render judgment upon the substance of interveners' initiative, its constitutionality, in advance of the election. This court is without power to interfere with pre-election proposals because to do so may place the administration of government at the footstool of the judiciary. This court will exercise judicial restraint and follow the reason of the majority of the court throughout the United States, both federal and state, which have articulated a policy of deference towards direct legislation process. We cannot invade the territory of the legislature or the electorate to review the substantive validity of the proposed initiative, and thereby we will honor the maxim embodied in the Constitution mandate of separation of powers. Personhood proponents in Oklahoma sought to amend the state constitution to define personhood as beginning at conception. The state Supreme Court, citing the U.S. Supreme Court 1992 decision in Planned Parenthood v. Casey, ruled in April 2012 that the proposed amendment was unconstitutional under the federal Constitution and blocked inclusion of the referendum question on the ballot. In October 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to hear an appeal of the state Supreme Court ruling. In 2006, a 16-year-old girl was charged in Mississippi with murder for the stillbirth of her daughter on the basis that the girl had smoked cocaine while pregnant. Today, in statutory and corporate law, certain social constructs are legally considered persons. In many jurisdictions, some corporations and other legal entities are considered legal persons with standing to sue or be sued in court. This is known as legal or corporate personhood. In 1819, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Dartmouth College Dartmouth College versus Woodward that corporations have the same rights as natural persons to enforce contracts. Corporate personhood is the legal concept that a corporation may be recognized as an individual in the eyes of the law. The doctrine forms the basis for legal recognition that corporations as groups of people may hold and exercise certain rights under the common law and the U.S. Constitution. For example, corporations may contract with other parties and sue or be sued in court in the same way as natural persons or unincorporated associations of persons. The doctrine does not hold that corporations are flesh and blood people, apart from their shareholders, officers, and directors, nor does it grant a corporation all of the rights of citizens, since at least trustees of Dartmouth College versus Woodward 17 U.S. 518 in 1819, the U.S. Supreme Court has recognized corporations as having the same rights as natural persons to contract and to enforce contracts. In Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad, 18 U.S. 394 in 1886, the court reporter Bancroft Davis noted in the headnote to the opinion that the Chief Justice Morris Waite began oral arguing by stating, "The court does not wish to hear argument on the question whether the provisions of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which forbids a state to deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, applies to these corporations. We are all of the opinion that it does." While the headnote is not part of the court's opinion and thus not precedent, 2 years later, in Pembina Consolidated Silver Mining Company versus Pennsylvania 125 U.S. 181 in 1888, the court clearly affirmed the doctrine, holding under the designation of the persons there is no doubt that the private corporation is included in the 14th Amendment. Such corporations are merely associations of individuals united for a special purpose and permitted to do business under the particular name and have a succession of members without dissolution. This doctrine has been reaffirmed by the court many times since. In 1818, the United States Supreme Court decided Dartmouth College versus Woodworth 17 U.S. 518 in 1819, writing, "The opinion of the courts, our mature deliberation, is that this corporate charter is a contract, the obligation of which cannot be impaired without violating the Constitution of the United States. This opinion appears to us to be equally supported by reason and by the former decision of this court. Person. A person is a being such as a human that has certain capacities or attributes constituting personhood, which in turn is defined differently by different authors in different disciplines and by different cultures in different times and places. In ancient Rome, the word person, Latin, or prosopon, Greek, originally referred to the masks worn by actors on stage. The various masks represent the various persona in the stage play. The current concept of person was developed during the Trinitarian and Christological debates in the 4th and 5th centuries, in contrast to the word nature. During the theological debates, some philosophical tools or concepts were needed so that the debates could be held on common basis to all theological schools. The purpose of the debate was to establish the relation, similarities, and difference between the verbum of God. The philosophical concept of person arose, taking the word prosopon from the Greek theater. Therefore, Christus, the verbum and God were defined as different persons. This concept was applied later to the Holy Ghost, the angels, and all human beings. Since then, a number of important changes to the word meaning and use have taken place, and attempts have been made to redefine the word with varying degree of adoption and influence. In addition to the question of personhood, of what makes a being count as a person to begin with, there are different questions about personal identity, both about what makes any particular person that particular person instead of another, and about what makes a person that one time the same person as he or she was or will be at another time, despite any intervening changes. The common plural of person, people, is often used to refer to an entire nation or ethnic group, as in a people. The plural persons is often used in philosophical and legal writing. The criteria for being a person are designed to capture those attributes which are the subject or most humane concern with ourselves and the source of what we regard as most important and most problematic in our lives. Harry G. Frankfurt. Personhood is the status of being a person. Defining personhood is a controversial topic in philosophy and law, and is closely tied to legal and political concepts of citizenship, equality, and liberty. According to law, only a natural person or legal person has rights, protections, privileges, responsibility, and legal liability. Alright, I believe right there, personhood continues to be a topic of international debate and has been questioned during the abolitionist. Yeah, I've already read all that. Now, let me see if I can find out where I need to go to now. Okay, here we go. Personal identity is the unique identity of person through time. That is to say, the necessary and sufficient conditions under which a person at one time and a person at another time can be said to be the same person, persisting through time. In the modern philosophy of mind, this concept of the personal identity is sometimes referred to as the diachronic problem of personal identity. The synchronic problem is grounded in the question of what features or traits characterize a given person at one time. Identity is an issue for both continental philosophy and analytical philosophy. A key question in continental philosophy is in what sense we can maintain the modern concept or identity while realizing many of our prior assumptions about the world are incorrect. Proposed solutions to the problem of personal identity include continuity, not continuity. Continuity include continuity of the philosophical body, continuity of an immaterial mind or soul, continuity of a consciousness or memory, the bundle theory of self, continuity of personality after death, the death of the physical body, and proposals that there are actually no persons or selves which persist over time at all. Natural person. In jurisprudence, a natural person is a real human being as opposed to a legal person which may be private, i.e. business entity, or public, i.e. government organization. In many cases, fundamental human rights are implicitly granted only to natural persons. For example, the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which states a person cannot be denied the right to vote based on gender, or Section 15 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which guarantees equality rights, apply to natural persons only. Another example of the distinction between natural and legal persons, that a natural person can hold public office, but a corporation cannot. A corporation can, however, file a lawsuit or own property as a legal person. Usually a natural person perpetrates a crime, but legal persons may also commit crimes. In the USA, animals that are not persons under the U.S. law cannot commit crimes. Legal persons. To have legal personality means to be capable of having legal rights and duties within a certain legal system, such as to enter into contracts, sue, and be sued. Legal personality is a prerequisite to legal capacity. The ability of any legal person to amend, enter into, transfer, etc. rights and obligations in international law. Consequently, legal personality is a prerequisite for an international organization to be able to sign international treaties in its own name. Legal persons, Latin persona loris, are of two kinds: natural persons, people, and juridical persons, also called juristic and artificial or fictitious persons. Latin persona ficta. Groups of people such as corporations, which are treated by law as if they were persons, while people acquire legal personhood when they are born. Judicial persons do so when they are incorporated in accordance with law, in part based on the principle that legal persons are simply organizations or natural persons, and in part based on the history of statutory interpretation of the word person. The U.S. Supreme Court has repeatedly held that certain constitutional rights protect legal persons, like corporations and other organizations. Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad is sometimes cited for this finding because the court reporter's comments included a statement the Chief Justice made before oral arguments began, telling the attorney during pretrial that the court does not wish to hear arguments on the question whether the provision in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which forbids states to deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the law, applies to these corporations. Okay, so we are all of opinion that it does. Later, opinions misinterpreted these pre-argument comments as part of the legal decision. As a result, because of the First Amendment, Congress may not make a law restricting the free speech of a corporation, a political action group, or dictating the coverage of a local newspaper. And because of the Due Process Clause, a state government may not take the property of a corporation without using due process of law and providing just compensation. These protections apply to all legal entities, not just corporations. So that is the end of my reading. I ended up adding the same stuff in at the end of that note, so sorry about repeating some of it over again. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, this was one of my favorite ones. I have a final draft of this on a blog that I've done that I'll later make it a new video for. So this one's not over with yet. This is the first bit of information that I pulled up about personhood. I actually like it, so I went ahead and kept the information and researched it. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, share, make comments, give feedback. All feedback's welcome, and thank you for watching.